Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 480th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have a cheeky fellow from the UK. His name is Ted Jackson. This dude ran 7 marathons, which is amazing. He ran them on 7 continents, which is amazing. He ran 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, which is amazing. He ran 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days with a body like mine. And, you know, if you listen for a while, I'm a big guy. He's a big guy. We're about the same size, about 220 pounds. So he's not a runner. He didn't even train. Why did he do it? You got to listen to this episode to find out, but it will be worth your time. He did some amazing things for great reasons, and his discovery about himself and how you can apply those discoveries to your own business, your own life, will be quite beneficial. You're definitely going to get a positive ROI on this interview, okay? And as you listen to this, one thing that you'll notice is he was surrounded by good people. You know, the things he did not do alone, and he did for some big reasons. So if you need that type of accountability, somebody to help you grow, push yourself, let me know. 2 different things. You know, I've got my private coaching. Well, 3 different things. I do have some private coaching and consulting. I have a semi-private called the 5.us, starting in January. And the ongoing training, theimplementors.com. So it's weekly calls, live group. Ask questions anytime in the group, and that is month to month, or you can save 50% when you join for the year. Okay? Theimplementors.com, the 5.us, or just go to my website, hit the contact us, and we'll talk about the private stuff. Sound good? All right. Now let's bring on Ted. Ted Jackson, rebelinthearena.com, all the way from the UK. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
I'm very good. Thanks, Wes. Thank you very much for having me.
So we both have very poor, we're very poor judges of character. We have a mutual online friend, and you were crazy enough to accept my invitation request. So this is all your fault.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. I'm prepared to put myself in the firing line. It's a kind of motto of mine anyway. So
I think I'm like part British, man. I just, just throw caution to the wind, tell people to go pound sand, and, it's all good. I love the way y'all speak your mind, but I digress. So I looked you up, and the thing that hit me right off the bat was this whole 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days. But as amazing as that is, you are not a marathoner. Is that safe to say?
I think it's safe to say that you may not. I mean, I am a marathoner because I've done many marathons.
You've done marathons. I think you're not a traditional marathoner, shall we say?
Yeah, maybe not what maybe the public might think of as a marathoner. And I've seen many people over the years who definitely don't look like marathoners, and they've got some pretty good marathon times. I'm one of those guys that doesn't look like a marathoner, and I don't have particularly good marathon times. So, yeah, I'm more than happy to sit back and go, I don't look like a marathoner, and I think it would surprise most people that I've done what I've done.
And are you just a glutton for punishments? Do you not have your meds dialed in right? I mean, what
am I a glutton for punishment? I think the main thing is that I'm a bit of a show off. I like to interest people, and I like to amaze people. So, I do these things mainly to be able to say at a dinner party, oh yeah, I did 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. Which was kind of cool.
I didn't even know there was a continent or a marathon on Antarctica.
Yeah, well, when we ran it, we had one specially organized. There's a couple of marathons. So the race organizer, Richard Donovan, organizes the Antarctic Marathon every year. He's even organized 100K races on Antarctica. And we're not just talking, there are some people that think that there's a marathon in Antarctica because there's an island, which is quite a long way from Antarctica, called King George Island, and they organize a marathon there, but it's actually quite a muddy patch. Whereas we went mainland Antarctica, right there, middle of nowhere, middle of the ice.
At least you did it in the summer, I hope.
Yeah, it was daylight.
Yeah.
I think the thing about the summer there is there's non-stop. I mean, I love it. It's magical to go somewhere where there is no nighttime.
Right.
And, basically we were running at 2:00 in the morning without knowing. Yeah,
that's unbelievable. So what made you decide that? I mean, have you always been a runner? Like something drug you into this? Something lit that fire?
I suppose I never really was. I mean, I wanted to be a rock star, so when I was younger, I just wanted to be a rock star, or I wanted to be John Belushi. And I was, that's what I assumed everyone wanted to be. And I certainly did. And I really did. And I lived my lifestyle like I was John Belushi. And I was just waiting for someone to come through the door and say, wow, you're fucking amazing, dude. You're just incredible. I just want to make you famous. And I didn't know what I wanted to be famous for or anything like that. And basically I got to a stage in my life where that just wasn't going to happen. And I was like down. Long story short, sorted myself out after many trips to police cells and hospitals and all that kind of thing, and a rehab here and a rehab there. Sorted myself out and was kind of getting on with life. My father had a triple bypass operation. My brother had a heart attack aged 30-something, young. And I was thinking, maybe there's something hereditary here to do with the heart stuff. I ought to do some exercise and be less of a fat bastard. And I then met up with a friend and I had dinner with a friend, and he said, I've just signed up for the New York Marathon. I was like, how do you do that? What even is that? He goes, you just go on the website, sign up, you get your flights, your hotel, and you do the marathon. I was like, so I signed up that night, and that was the beginning of my marathon journey. That was way back in 2004, I think.
And how far in advance did you sign up, and did you start training?
I didn't. I must have signed up, I don't know, 5 or 6 months in advance. And the whole point of doing these events, and for me, my heart, it was first of all, hey, for once in my life, I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to get training. I'm going to get fit, and I'm going to do really well. You're going to change my lifestyle. And I end up not doing any training, and having paid the fee and got the flights and things, thinking I better go. So go and then just run them, and then run, waddle, walk, shuffle, drag, get my ass round, finish it, do what I said I was going to do.
Right.
So that was the start. That's what happened in New York. Then there was after New York, there was definitely a fallow patch. It was like, I've done my marathon now. I've done a marathon. I don't have to do anything else. I'd never even been in a 10K race before or anything like that. It was straight to marathon. And then it was like, okay, I've done my marathon. And then I just went fallow for a bit. And then my friend said, he rang me up one day. I think it must have been when the tsunami hit in Thailand.
Yep.
And I was in an RV in Las Vegas at Christmas. And I got a phone call in the middle of the night, one saying, how's your brother? And I was like, what do you mean? And they went, well, how's your brother? I was like, well, I don't know. What do you mean? I suppose he's fine. Oh. And then, of course, the next morning, I sort of turned on the TV and I'd seen there'd been a tsunami in Thailand. And I was like, okay, I see what you mean. Maybe he's okay. Luckily, he was. He'd got to high ground. Some friends had saved him, but they'd seen all the devastation.
Was he working there or just visiting?
No, he was on holiday with his family and everything. And that was their kind of, woo, okay. And another phone call was from a mate who said, I'm going to do the Tour de France next year. Do you want to come and join me?
Like he would race it?
Well, no, do the entire. So he basically explained. I knew nothing about, but I didn't have a bike.
Oh, he's going to ride the course.
Ride the course of the Tour de France.
Is this the same
21 stages? 21 stages in 21 days. Same route, going 2 weeks ahead of the pros.
Was this the same New York City Marathon friend?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to get him out of your life.
Well, I kind of shifted him to one side, but he's a very good man. And we were raising money for a good cause. At the time, they have a foundation set up in memory of his brother. And I just, so I went from marathon to saying, yeah, I'll do the Tour de France with no idea what the Tour de France meant. I had no concept. I'd never ridden a road bike in my life. So the next day in LA, the exchange rate was really good. So I went shopping and I bought myself a carbon fiber bike and had it shipped back to England because that was a much cheaper way of doing it than buying it in England. Wow. And then actually we did do some training for the Tour de France, because it's a bit foolish to turn up and try and do 2,500 miles in 21 days with zero training. And I didn't know how to ride a bike. So I kind of learned how to ride a bike. We went out and did some rides. I built it up. I managed to get to a stage where I could do over 100 miles, ride a bike. I didn't like the cycling community. The cycling community is a bit weird in England. They're all a bit up themselves, and they weren't particularly a friendly bunch. So I kind of thought I was a bit cocky myself, thinking, well, that's okay. I'm going to be doing the Tour de France, and most of you probably haven't. So there's that. And I did a couple of, I got to a stage where I could do 2 100-mile rides in a row. Day one of the Tour de France, had a crash within 15 minutes of starting, broke my bike, had to use someone else's bike. Just, and I got to the end of the day and I thought, I'm not going to make it past lunchtime tomorrow. And then that's how it was for a daily basis. I just took it from meal break to meal break and did that. So suddenly I was a guy that had done a New York Marathon and ridden the entire route of the Tour de France, whilst being a sort of kind of 100-kilo kind of slob.
What was that like? And
everything just went like this every time.
Yeah. Every January I run swim a 5K to raise money. We do it out in Tampa Bay for the Navy SEAL Foundation. And I just jumped in. I donated to a friend who swam it every year, but he was a Navy SEAL. He swam the English Channel, and I just said, oh, yeah, I'll swim. So I trained in a pool and, just jumped in the water. And so now I'm going on my 6th time doing it. But it's not a marathon. It's not 21 days of bike riding. I think you're batshit crazy, man. Are you something wrong? Are you okay?
I don't know whether I am or not. My wife says she knows when something's up with me. So, most husbands will be like, they can sometimes look a bit shifty behind their laptop. And when they come in the room, they might change the screen quickly and stuff. And she knows. She'll come in and I'm like, oh, and she'll be like, what are you looking at? And I found the next thing, so when
I'm going to climb Mount Everest on my hands naked. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to do something.
Kind of. There are these things that people don't realize that exist. So the next thing after the Tour de France is like, right, I don't want to ride a bike again, because that hurts your ass. And it was great, but look, they do something. There's a marathon at the North Pole. You fly up to the
Hey Ted,
land in a Russian jet or runway that they've cut the week before.
Hey, go back. Let's turn your video.
We cut out.
Yeah, you're cutting out. Let's turn your video off. Sometimes that'll free up some bandwidth, and go back to the beginning of that story.
Okay. Okay. Let's see how we do that. Stop video.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So you said you were doing a search and you found the North Pole marathon?
Yeah, there's a marathon organized at the North Pole. And I thought, I have to be involved in that. There's not a lot of people that have been to the North Pole, let alone run a marathon there.
Yeah, for sure.
So I thought that would make a good story.
I mean, you're in England. That's basically up like by the Arctic Circle, right? I mean, you're way up there.
Yeah, I suppose some people might think they're surprisingly far away, although sometimes the weather feels a bit like it. Yeah, so we fly to northern Norway. There's a group of islands called Svalbard, which is north of Norway. And then that's like a staging post. And then we get on this special Russian plane, which is used to minus, ridiculous temperatures and things like that. And a couple of weeks before, some Russian paratroopers have flown in, jumped out of a plane with a tractor, made a runway up on the ice, which is about 2 meters thick, 1.5 meters thick, on the North Pole, cut a runway, and then we come in on a plane, land on that runway, and run a marathon.
Wow.
Just as you do. I've been there 3 times now. It's the most magical place on earth.
Wow.
It's incredible.
And how many people do that?
Not a lot of people have done it in the world. I suppose now in an event, the event hasn't taken place over the last 2 years. This year, COVID stopped it happening. And the year before, there was, I think there were logistic and political problems, because there is a fair amount of politics going on with not that it's even land. It's frozen sea sometimes. So a bit of politics between Russian logistics and Norwegians.
Right.
But normally they'll take an event and maybe they take about 40 people.
Oh, wow.
And it's been, I don't know when it started. I first did it back in 2008, and then went back in 2009. And then I went back. We had a sort of 10-year, a reunion, I think in 2018, that a few of us who'd been up there in the early days came back up and did it again, which was amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to like the Tour de France, or isn't it do we have to say it the right way and hold our pinkies up and with a kind of snobbish attitude, the Tour de France? Is it France?
Tour de France. Well, I suppose you say Tour de France, I'll say Tour de France, and, tomatoes. But yeah, I mean, that was, I think, to be honest, doing a marathon for me, although it was a fantastic achievement, and you always get that thing I always get it with every event I've done, I get quite emotional towards the end, just when you're going to finish.
Right.
If they're not at the finish, the finish is not often an anticlimax for me, but it's that moment that I know everything's come to a head and it's going to happen.
Right.
So I'll get this wave of emotion that comes over me, with 4 miles to go or something. And I think, that's it. I got it. It's, in the bag, and then it finishes an anticlimax. Then you get a bit of a post-event blues, and then I find something else.
Right.
But Tour de France. But the marathon was a kind of thing. But then I thought, well, thousands and thousands and thousands of people have done marathons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to start looking for things that not so many people had done. So the Tour de France was something that I thought, not many non-cycling, non-professional people have ridden 21 stages in 21 days and followed the exact route.
But I mean, to even do that, I mean, you had to be moderately successful to take 21 days off. And I mean, were you not? Were you in debt?
I suppose moderately successful, well, as in economically.
Yeah. I mean, most people can't take 21 days off just to sit on their butts. But I mean, to fly to another country, I mean, you had support, right? I mean, I imagine you got to pay for people to get some help, right? So, I mean, what were you doing?
I had to pay. Me and this guy, Johnny, good friend of mine, Johnny, we organized the event. So between us, Johnny came up with the idea to run the event to raise money for his charity.
Okay.
And his family very kindly sort of underwrote the event because they didn't want the charity to lose money, and they couldn't foresee that this would be a money-making activity. Okay. Right. They didn't think anyone would make any money. They thought they would lose money. So the family covered the costs so the charity wouldn't lose money. I personally, you paid a fee to enter. I can't remember. I probably had to raise like a couple of £1,000, so maybe $2,000 or $3,000 to enter, and then make a fundraising commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And there were just 6 of us who did the whole thing, and then we opened it up so that people could come out and join us and do a stage or
Sure.
2 stages or 3 stages, and they all raised money. And another 50 people came out over the course of the time and joined us on various stages. And we had one motorbike guy that used to motorbike backwards and forwards. He wore out his tires twice on the course going. And we had one van that had a couple of helpers in it that made sandwiches and stuff and were our feeders for the entire time. But we stayed in some terrible places, that didn't have any facilities. And when I got in after a day's cycling, late at night, everything would be closed. It was a night, there was no hot water. It was horrendous. But this event that we weren't sure was going to make money ended up making £250,000.
Oh my gosh.
Raising £250,000 for my friend's trust, for the William Waits Memorial Trust. And so it was a success. And then 2 years later, they ran it again. And then the next year again, and the next year again. And I think it's raised to £2 to £3 million so far.
Wow.
Which, from a crazy idea on the back of a cigarette packet, is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And amazing for this guys, for the memory of Johnny's brother is just absolutely insane. So I was just really pleased to be there at the beginning. I like being there at the beginning and saying yes to things, essentially. That's kind of like when you said, oh, you're crazy to jump in with me. Normally, if people ask me to do stuff, without much thought, I tend to jump in and say, yeah, unless it's an invitation for dinner or stuff. I normally say no to people straight away if they want to go out and do something social, but that's more to do with the fact that I haven't had a drink in 23 years or 25 years. And I now choose what I want to do socially. But if it's anything, if it's something extreme, if it's something adventurous, if it's something a little bit out there, or if it's a commitment to, hey, do you want to come and do a talk to these people, or do you want to come and do that? I generally say yes to stuff to put myself in a bit of a zone.
Yeah, I love it. I'm kind of the same way. I hate small talk. I hate chit chat. I'd rather be.
It drives me mad. Oh.
So did something click in these different trials and challenges you did? I mean, did you realize like there's a little something different about you that maybe could help others? I mean, you have one-on-one coaching, right, through your website.
Yeah.
Or do people just need a kick in the pants and you're there to kick them, nudge them, push them forward?
Did anything click? I think it took a long time for anything to click for me. So whilst I was doing all this, to be honest, it's like, I think when you're in it and when you do this stuff, you don't necessarily stand back and go, what I'm doing is particularly different or difficult or hard or different to what anyone else is doing. In a strange, although I wanted to do it to say I'm showing off and blah, blah, blah. And I knew that it was kind of impressive. I was also never massively fulfilled myself, I don't think. I don't think I impressed myself very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was probably maybe at the core of many of my addictions and my alcoholism and not finding my why and my wherefore. So I, at the time, doing marathons, doing the Tour de France, going to the North Pole, none of this really, I certainly didn't think that any of it gave me any reason to think that I could be of help to anyone else. I certainly wasn't in a place of service at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that has come a lot more recently. It's taken a long time for me to find my own personal acceptance.
Right.
And acknowledge what it is, acknowledge that actually maybe it's just a lot of what I do and the way I can help people is actually by getting vulnerable and not being Billy Big Balls, and doing these things to say, me, look, we can do it anyway.
I'm losing you.
Believe that, but because I'm honest. Man,
right. You're under some good
Let me try
stuff.
something.
It's
Stay there
choppy.
1 second.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Got the internet cleared up. So you're saying that you're helping people by being vulnerable and not what you call Billy Big Balls, which I appreciate. And then it was getting choppy. So run us back through that, what you were getting into.
Okay. So I think I was just getting into the fact that, you were talking about when I was doing these events early on, I didn't feel that I really had much to offer. I didn't think that, and I'd done quite a few amazing things, but I still didn't think that I didn't have the confidence in myself to think I was doing anything special, and that I could help. And it wasn't until I kind of really had a good look at myself, which I did. And I reached out to a coach because I was realizing that I was doing a lot of events and doing all this stuff, but chasing something, but never getting anywhere. As that feeling I was explaining before, about how I can get to the end of an event and then feel the anticlimax. Yeah. Because I think I wanted the events to be my purpose. So I was struggling. I really struggled to find what it was that made Ted Jackson. Right. Because I was, I had a big ego, but maybe possibly a low self-esteem. Right. So I kind of was, on the outside, people thought, hey, I was totally sorted and totally cool. And on the inside, I was kind of screaming, going, I really don't know what my place in life is. This is all very well. But so I reached out for some help, actually, and got myself a coach, even though I knew nothing about coaching. And I probably, if I'm honest, I'd probably spent my life being very negative about anyone in the self-help space. Or whatever that might be, coaching, counseling, all that kind of thing. I've been brought up in a very kind of, pull your socks up kind of family. We just get on with it. What do you got to complain about? Yeah. I grew up in a pretty privileged household. And so it was kind of self-help, and asking for help really wasn't in my DNA. Right. Even though I'd been through the sort of alcoholism and addiction, and so I was clean, but I hadn't really looked at myself. So I reached out, got a coach who was amazing, and I could not believe how fast he helped me find my way in life. And it's almost impossible to describe how, because I do think there's a certain amount of magic involved. Because actually, just it's magic.
Do you think had he gone down a similar path as you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a different way, but a similar path. So I think everyone has their struggles on the outside, and he's very open about it. On the outside, he was extremely sorted, great job, high paying, high flying accountant, had been in the military, but suffered enormous depression, suffered all this kind of, just a feeling of being in completely the wrong space and in completely the wrong place, and not doing what he was, not finding his calling in a way, just doing stuff that he thought everyone else wanted to see him doing. Right. So he went through the same process. Yeah. And kind of gave me that gift. And when I got the gift, and then I was thinking, well, what are my gifts? And I thought, how can I be? I'd never really had any confidence that I had any qualifications to give, because I dropped out of university or to have my first child. So I had kids really young. I'm quite young myself. My eldest is 26. I've got 4 kids, and I'm still a young man myself. So I never really had a growing up period myself, I don't think. Right. And I just through, me and Sophie, my wife, we kind of had to grow up as we went, and maybe we didn't necessarily grow up at the same time everyone else does.
Right.
You know, we kind of so it's been quite a journey, but now I've got a whole heap more confidence. I know that what I've got to offer is a great thing, and you know, and it didn't take an awful lot to shine a light on that for myself. You know, someone shone a light on it and said, "Hey, look, everything you've done, every single thing, every bloody prison cell I've been in, every marathon I've run, every mistake I've made, the children I brought up, whatever it might be, is my experience." And I didn't need a piece of paper to tell me that.
Right.
But I thought I did. You know,
right.
I was convinced I did, in fact. You know, I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I kind of was always a bit of a spoilt baby, but it was always told to me that I was being a spoiled baby, and I always got what I wanted. You know, I always had a way. I could manipulate anything. You know, I'm very, very clever at manipulating and getting my own way, which also made me feel insecure about how I was getting things and whether I actually deserved anything. Because when you've manipulated your way into something, you don't know whether it was actually true or not.
Right.
It's that, I don't know if you get what I mean there.
Oh, yeah. It's it's that kind of the street smarts that kind of you figure out how to pull people's levers, push their buttons, and a little bit.
And I think I figured out many, many ways to hack life. But in doing so, I didn't ever give myself. I always thought I was undermining myself. But by, you know, maybe because I did it that way and I got the result I wanted, maybe I didn't deserve it.
Right.
Whatever it might be, whatever the outcome in any situation. Because I don't know, I don't think I'm special or different or anything, but I do think I see the world in a different way where I think, well, why are they doing it that way? You could just do it this way.
Right.
And, you know, and that's not a bad thing. It's just not the way everyone else does it. But I used to think, if I'm doing it that way and it's that easy, surely that must be wrong. That's a bit like cheating at school or something. That was my mindset, as opposed to, no, actually, you're clever. That was clever to do that.
Right.
It's just not, you didn't get a degree. That's all.
Yeah. It's not necessarily taking a shortcut. It's just being efficient, right? Like breaking the mold and not feeling bad about doing things the right way instead of the defined way.
Exactly. And that's exactly how it was. And I think, you know, and half the time I was thinking, well, I'm being efficient, but then someone would turn around and go, yeah, but you're cutting corners. And I'm like, but actually it didn't matter that I was cutting corners.
Yeah.
Because the job got done and it got done well. But I still undermined myself with my thinking there. So my thinking, I wouldn't give myself the credit because I listened to what other people were saying. And I listened to that kind of everyone else's story.
Yeah.
You know, and believed it.
I remember years ago, one of my good friends in Texas, he came over and asked me how I would do something. And he's a super smart guy, very analytical, very like a thinking, methodical, strategic guy, right? And I told him how I would do it. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good way." And he said something wise. We're all best friends. We vacation together, you know. And he's like, he said, "Yeah, I asked Wes because he's lazy." and his wife got all offended. I'm like, I'm not offended at all. I am lazy. So I mean, that leads me to find the most efficient way. Like I still get the job done, but you know, I like being paid by the job instead of by the hour, so I can just get it done.
I can resonate with that. That really resonates with me. You know, just that sort of. And the problem is, I gave this lazy tag a negative connotation.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, a lot of my work on myself has been about interpretation of words. Yeah. And what's your definition of lazy? And what does that mean? And are you lazy?
Right.
Because no, I'm not fucking lazy. You know, I just don't like to. It's like just like I don't like small talk.
Yeah.
I don't like to expend energy, which is utterly pointless.
Right.
You know, there has to be a kind of point. You know, and that gets around to, well, what's the why? Exactly. Where's the why here? And my why has changed enormously from the early days. I'm probably a bit glib earlier on about how, I do these things because I like to show off. And I think that was my why in the early days. Sure. And then my why changed. We had a bit of my wife got diagnosed with MS. And that was a shock. Mm-hmm. That really hit us hard. And then it was like, okay, now I had a cause, so it went from me just wanting to show off to me having I had a cause and a reason to carry on and do some more stuff. But I also was desperate to kind of give back in my way. And there was no other way to give back other than for me to raise money for the charity that supported her. So that's what I did. And somehow, and it's not like I'd ever been a big fundraiser before. I mean, I'd managed to raise money on those events that I did, but small fry compared to what I finally raised doing, once Sophie had her diagnosis and I had that. And actually I focused so much time on fundraising that, again, that kind of, the thought of an idea of training for anything just kind of went out the window. Sure. But I managed to raise, about $250,000 myself, personally, doing, the Marathon des Sables, which is a big race through the desert, and the 7 marathons on 7 continents.
So as you did those were all for various MS causes?
Yeah, there's a charity called Overcoming MS, which is UK based, but I think now an international charity. And Sophie had stumbled across a little small ad in a newspaper saying, "Come along and have a listen to this chap talk." And it was a doctor called George Jelinek, who himself had MS, and he's a research doctor, and he'd done a whole heap of research. And basically, it's a promotion rather than dealing with the MS through drugs and steroids or whatever it might be. It was promoting a massive change in diet and lifestyle, to do completely low fat, no fat diet, and it had been proven to make huge changes to people. And my wife Sophie she'd been on the running machine. She'd done a 10K on the running machine, and then one day she came in and she got out of that into a hot bath, got out the bath and couldn't speak. That was her first experience of like, oh, hang on, she lost the power of speech. Wow. And then, so after some brain scans, we found a whole heap of lesions on her brain. The MS was confirmed. Now she's gone, she went back 2 or 3 years after following the diet strictly regime, and like all the lesions have gone away.
Wow.
And this isn't some kind of, I'm a skeptical kind of guy. I like to see proof. And I've always been pretty skeptical of anyone that says, oh, there's a miracle cure and all this kind of thing. But, the proof is there. I got brain scans.
Right.
And, she follows this lifestyle. And so, hey, I wanted to do what I could and support the charity.
Right. What's the name of that charity again?
It's called Overcoming MS.
Okay. I'll make sure we link to that.
That'd be great.
So here's a little post-production edit. I clicked on something, I don't know, some plug-in, and it made the audio quite hot on my end, even though he said I sounded fine. So I'm going to make a few edits here in post-production, but what I asked Ted is, is it possible to not hit rock bottom and still have success? Because I've seen so many entrepreneurs that, they struggle, they're ripped off, whatever happens, they hit rock bottom and then they bounce back. So is it possible to be avoided?
I don't know, because I've not been there. I only know my experience, and I don't really count myself as an entrepreneur, I suppose, but I suppose some would. But I really do think that there's a whole, I'm so grateful that I reached rock bottom. And I didn't have just one rock bottom. I had a rock bottom with alcohol and drugs. And then I had a second rock bottom 15 years into sobriety, which was a mental rock bottom, which again was like it sounds evangelical, but almost like a rebirth for me. I really got to a point where everyone on the outside would have just been thinking, "Geez, he's got it all." I had all the trappings. All right. Some people might have not thought that a yellow 911 was particularly tasteful, but it's all I'd ever wanted. And then I got that, and I had all these things, and I'd done all this amazing stuff, and I had a beautiful wife and 4 amazing kids, and I felt empty and dead inside. Just like no purpose. What's going on? I got no mojo, and so that was my second rock bottom. And then, so I suppose I've reached out for help twice, big time. I reached out with alcoholism and the addiction, but I think I never really, really dealt with the issues. I think I dealt with, I managed to stop doing stuff, but I suppose in many ways I possibly could have been like a dry drunk. I hadn't really looked at myself in depth. Mm-hmm. I think I almost white knuckled it. I almost thought, hey, right, I've got to stop. For my family, because I got a deep love for my family and I didn't want to lose them. So stop drinking, stop doing what I was doing. But did I really deal with the issues of Ted Jackson and what makes me tick? And had I ever really looked at anything? No, I white knuckled it through life. Mm-hmm. And actually it didn't, it's not like I had to go through years of therapy to look at myself. I just had never looked at myself.
Right.
I'd never asked myself any questions.
Yeah.
I'd never once considered that. Or if I had, you immediately, it's like in the shower, maybe you talk to yourself in the shower, but you immediately shut yourself down. I do, with any decent plan, or, the negative self-talk that I had was ridiculous. Any plan or any dream or anything. It's amazing how quick that inner voice inside me was going, yeah, but you can't do that. You're a fucking idiot type thing. And now I listen to myself differently and I speak to myself differently. If I catch myself calling myself an idiot in my head, I stop myself and say, well, no, don't do that. You're fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. And it can change an awful lot of things.
Are you a big goal setter?
I'm not a big goal setter in the strictest sense of the word, as in, hey, I've read enough books now to be looking at, the simple, goal setting books and setting goals and what you need to do and aim smart and all that kind of things. And no, because I still take on events in the same way that I used to take on events. I'm still looking for something exciting, and I still look for those things to do that are a bit adventurous and are going to push me beyond my limits, to see what I can do. And also there's still a part of me, I have to accept that there is a part of Ted Jackson, quite a big part, that does like to show off. I'm just more accepting of that now, and yeah, I do want people to think I'm fucking awesome. But I think I'm more genuine now, and I'm much more genuine, and I've got much more, I think, everything. My purpose with my family and everything is so much more honest than it ever was, because I was never honest with myself. Mm-hmm. And I do think that finding some kind of self-honesty, I mean, hey, in the grand scheme of things, who's going to know? Me.
Right.
Simple as that. With anything, whatever I do, if I drive too fast, if I do now, doesn't matter if I'm caught. I know.
Right.
And it's that stuff that damages me. So, it sounds cliche, and I don't know. I was always so negative about any kind of self-help in the past that, when I see things like be the best version of you and all that kind of thing, I still have a worry about judgment from other people.
Right.
Maybe family members, maybe, that kind of thing, but I have this worry of being judged for, well, hang on, what are you talking? That's all just self-help bollocks. But actually, you know what? I do strive to be better than I was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I find it makes my life fucking amazing. Right. So fuck you and your judgment. It's none of my business what you think. Mm-hmm. That's how I get over it, so, yeah, I'm not really into, you can get very hung up on what other people think of you.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know about you. I can.
I think you should take on the challenge of feeding my wife and me and our 7 kids 3 meals a day for 21 days straight. That will prove just how crazy you are.
Holy shit. I'm not very good at maths, but that's a lot of meals.
It'll be warm. You can set the temperature at whatever level you want.
Okay.
Have a little cup of tea.
I'm not much of a cook either. So.
You can order food and we'll eat it. It's all good.
Oh, okay. Right. I just provide it, yeah?
As long as we're fed 3 meals a day, 21 days. All right. Well, I could talk forever, but, duty calls. Got to hop on my next appointment, but I want to make sure we get your URLs out there. The MS charity is, let me pull that up, overcomingms.org. You've got an Instagram site or account, let's call it what it actually is, which is Ted Jackson Rebel Coaching. And I'm linking to this, of course, in the show notes. And then, if nothing else, check out your rebelinthearena.com. Just the pictures at the very top are worth the visit in and of themselves. So is that North Pole, South Pole? Where's that from?
That's North Pole. It was considerably colder at the North Pole than the South. I mean, when I was at South Pole, it was basically summer. I ran the South Pole Marathon in near enough a T-shirt at -5 degrees. But the North Pole, that was taken at -40.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, that's amazing. I'm not a fan of the cold. Don't mind the heat. Grew up in the South. Bring on 100+ degrees and humidity and sweat, and I'm good to go. But hey, I appreciate you coming on the show and laying it on the line.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Wes. It's been emotional.
Well, I got a lot out of it, and I appreciate you being so open. Have a great day.
Thanks, Wes. Over and out.
Well, I think I got most of the audio glitches. Good grief, 480 episodes. Still making mistakes. Oh, well. Stay at it, folks. One day you'll get it right, whatever it is you're doing. And but hey, I hope you got a lot out of it. I have fostered a good relationship with Ted and our mutual friends. Actually, we've gotten closer because of this, through this relationship. That's the beauty of having a podcast. The people you get to meet, get to pick their brains. I ask the questions that I want answered. And that's quite valuable. It is priceless, really. So, and I was able to move the schedule around a little bit, get his interview out a little earlier. I've got a few piled up here. I'm trying to compress the time frame and get them out to you. Just some good folks out there with powerful messages, and now more than ever, we need to get these messages out. We've got challenging times, but you know what? We always have challenging times. Yeah, today is probably a little tougher for most, but tough times don't last. Tough people do. So make sure you are you're getting through this. If you'd like some help with this, smart people do surround themselves with other smart people. If you think I might be that smart person, hit me up. You can go to thesaleswhisper.com, hit the Contact Us page, or if you just are ready to join, you can join the implementors.com. Get 41 videos on demand, start training right away. If you don't want the ongoing, you can go to makeeverysale.com. That is the on-demand content. Just pay one time and you have access to all of it. If you want the dialogue, the weekly accountability, able to ask questions at any time in the group, then that's the implementors.com, or just private consulting, through the website. All right. I appreciate you listening. I'll go sell something.